You know, we often talk about developing our fitness, and sometimes we don't discuss how to use less of our fitness or to make our riding more efficient. So I wanted to show something that I learned a long time ago, even with motocross, and I guess this connects with also my background in kinesiology. And I want to do this in steps or in different parts. And the first part I want to address is, your contact points, being your handlebars and your pedals, being your contact to your bike. So starting with this one, I wanted to talk about the handlebars. And often people ask about the bar position or the roll of the bar. And you see the top riders and you often see the same thing, and the bar is rolled in a position where it's, first of all, like in line with the fork. Now, just basic engineering, the fork that way is in the same, or the steering tube is in the same axis as the rise of the bar. But more importantly, most handlebars are built around that principle. So they're built so they're in line with that steer tube. And in turn, you get a bar that's got, a bit of sweep and typically a bit of rise. And rise being different than the height of the bar. Height is usually what you see in, obviously, the elevation of where the position of the bar is, but the rise is the angle upward. And it's important, I think, for a lot of athletes to understand that you're looking for a specific sweep, and I'm not going to give you numbers, but we want to sweep and we want to rise that matches our grip position. So that, most importantly, I think what you get is a lot of athletes that don't understand that we're not trying to grip the handlebars like you're holding a baseball bat. You're holding it more like a tennis racket, as you would a tennis racket or like a hockey stick or anything you need to use your wrist and the controls. I guess I kind of remind athletes that we're not using the handlebars to hold on to the bike, hopefully. We're using the handlebars to use the controls. So the brakes, there is some steering input, but most importantly, if we're doing it right, we're centering ourselves on the bike, and we're able to use our balance and our coordination and not just death grip the bike. So again, you want to have the bar a specific sweep and a rise so that your hands can kind of do that. Like, I want to maybe get in a little closer and I'll show you. So you see it's not that, it's more this position. And that's why a lot of riders will move their levers inward, because we don't want to be holding on to this part of it. And I'm going to go into levers and levers and following, I'm going to do this in, like I say, a few parts. But I want to start with the handlebars, and that is that you're getting it set up so that you feel comfortable that when your hands are in that position, you're making an even contact on your palms of your hand. And if you have the bar rolled too far forward, well, not only does it steer awkwardly, it doesn't rotate on steering tube axis, but it'll sweep the bar, which is not the way the bar was ever designed, or if you roll it back too far. But at the same time, more importantly, again, it's that rise upward and sweep back to match your hands, and then of course cutting your bars. I'm going to say that right now, and I talk this a lot about the pros, it's unbelievable how many amateur riders are just, call it weekend warriors, I think, to have their bars way too wide. And it's not just based on my principles or my ideas. It's not just based on your arm length or your shoulder width. There's a few variables, your torso, your overall size, your preferences, but typically don't, I would say don't set up your bike attempting to have your elbows up. It's sort of a backwards approach. And again, even elbows up is not necessarily a great thing, because you can be lifting your shoulders, shrugging in a real awkward, it's finding that position where, you're in a sweet spot. And again, there's no exact thing here, but you just want to stay away from what we call elevated shoulders. You want to have your shoulders down and back a little bit, and that way it can use your upper body mechanically sound. And in the next, part two of this, I'm going to talk about the levers and levers again, and why you want to get your wrist in a certain position. I won't talk about that now in this, because I think you need a few parts of this to kind of go through it all. But yeah, like, it's all about that grip position and getting in a place, and then you can feel that the width is right. Again, too much width, and you find a lot of people that the bar is so wide that they're reaching for the handlebar. Just imagine I'm exaggerating, you know, and that way they're not really leading the bike far enough because they're limited by how their arm reach. So with a little bit, like I think of Richie Rude, pretty, you know, big rider, and you'd be surprised. I think 765 is his go-to width. Again, giving him more maneuverability. You know, a wider bar doesn't, you know, like maybe some riders think, lift their elbows up and give them more leverage. Not necessarily. You're not doing push-ups here. That's not the idea. The bike is, the width is going to dictate a lot more control. You need more of that maneuverability than you need grip strength, and you're not pushing and pulling on the bike, hopefully. And the point of this is, a lot of people talking about their arm fatigue and their, you know, and their grip fatigue and forearm pump and so on, I think can be due to the lack of the right bar position. Again, the rise and sweep, the width of the bar maybe being too wide, and another one being how they hold on to the grips instead of being in that position. Again, get too wide and you start getting into that more grip instead of being able to do what you see me doing. Hopefully I can, you know, show that a bit in just this video, and try it out. I mean, this is the reason I'm doing this now, is they all say don't, you know, a lot of riders say don't do this stuff in the season, do it in the off season. Like, we're just beginning the off season. This is a good time to sort of experiment and try different things like bar widths and the roll, and don't expect it to feel great from the first time. Just go out and experiment with it. But you know, the way I look at it is, if you look at 9 out of 10 pros out there, if 9 out of 10 professionals are doing this, it's probably a good idea that they're probably doing this right. And I wouldn't bet on doing your setup for that odd person that does it 1 out of 20. It's not saying you couldn't be that person, but you know, don't just rely on that. So yeah, hopefully get your bar selection of choice. I like Renthal because they just come from a moto background. They have you know, just a little less sweep and a little more rise to their bars. And it's not a plug for Renthal, I promise. But and I also like my width at 770, and at the same time the stem and all those things too I want to get into. It's just getting that bar, and in part 2 of this I'll go into the levers. Thanks.